Did you play Call of Duty?
Yeah, I played a couple versions.
You were 100% a camper. That's what a noob would do.
Of course. I don't want to get killed.
You would hide in the second floor and you would just snipe people. That's exactly what you would do.
I would. I'd get my ghillie suit on and I'd go hide in the woods and hope no one killed me.
And that's why this woman has more balls than you.
That's
true.
She was
badass.
Welcome back to Shat On TV Westworld Edition, the podcast for the companion piece to the hit HBO series Westworld. My name is Roger Roper, also known as the Rog, and alongside me is my faithful co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
I'm feeling a little bit better today. I've had time to digest.
Listen, we are 3 episodes in, and I think I texted you, this show is way too dense for a one watch. I kind of wish there was a debate, another one of those disastrous presidential debates on Sunday, so HBO would have shock released it early again, like they did with episode 2, because I need time, Big D. I know we're always in a rush to get these out on time. I know we have an Instacast, but Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, what they keep producing is top-notch entertainment, but man, do they keep throwing in stuff that I have to go and rewatch and then rewatch and rewind and then write notes. It's becoming homework to me. I thought this was supposed to be fun. Now I'm back in college doing theses every week.
I've gotten to the point now where I'm starting to see things and starting to identify trends that aren't there. Like, I was convinced today that I had figured out how to tell which timeline we were watching. I was convinced. I texted you. I said, I got it down pat. I know what the time marker is, how we can tell. And then as I'm watching, of course, it goes to shit right away. So they tease you with enough. But if you were following social media today, you could see that the conversations are going across all social media platforms. It's become a hit, and it's done what HBO really wants, is people are starting to talk about it.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the numbers yet, but they seem to be strong. I mean, just based on social media interaction alone, it's really hit a nerve with the audience. I'm excited for the fact that they've already planned out 5 seasons. Again, there's 7 more episodes to go, and I feel like they've already covered so much, but yet there's still so much to tell. So anyway.
One thing I'm glad of is that HBO has a tendency of having faith in the audience, faith that they're smart enough to get it. Some other shows, I always harp on The Walking Dead, they beat people over the head with the subtleties. HBO has a knack of respecting their viewers. They don't need to really drum something in. The subtle performances and the information that they give you in little bits, it's not going over people's heads. People are picking up on it, and people are putting the pieces together. HBO's got it. The hour you spend watching the show is enjoyable, but it's not as enjoyable as maybe the hour and a half you spend talking with your coworkers about what you think.
Yeah, 100%. And we are getting a lot of fan interaction as well. We're getting a lot of tweets, a lot of retweets. People are sending us emails. I just want to give a shout out to our audience that's downloaded this show. We almost didn't do this. So we do another podcast called Shat the Movies, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because I want to get to the show. But we were doing Shat the Movies, and you and I have been talking about the show Westworld coming out, and there was delays, and are we going to do a podcast about it? And you had given up. You weren't going to do this.
Well, here's the deal. I have a 10-month-old daughter, so my time is finite. I don't have a total amount, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I like to put 100% effort into something. I want it to be quality. So I texted you one day and said, there's no way we can do 2 of these and have them be quality. You, I guess, had a couple of cocktails, and you started lashing out at me, and I said, you know what, let's give it a chance, and right now I'm really glad that we did. And to that, I want to thank the audience. You know, we're new to the podcast game, but because of the audience, you've actually driven us up to, we're number 8 today on iTunes top 100 for TV and movies. You know, we're right up there with the big boys, and we appreciate it. Without the listeners, We'd be nothing, and we do it for you so we can have that conversation. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, our Instacast, again, broke records. So thank you, our own personal records, and more than what we could have seen. And we want to, again, we want to be the podcast that if you download and you interact, we want to make sure that we get to your emails, we get to your theories, and we get to your analysis, because we definitely ask for that on Instagram and Twitter. For you guys to send us in. So here's what I propose, Big D, and you tell me if this is a good idea. I think that we should dedicate every Thursday, we'll release a viewer mail centric podcast where all of the tweets, all of the emails that have been sent in, if you have sent us an email before Wednesday, we will read and provide our analysis on your feedback, and I think that's another piece of content that viewers can get behind, because the last thing we want to do is, number one, not read your email, because then you'll be less inclined to send us one. The other thing we don't want to do is we don't want to release, and I've looked at other Westworld podcasts, and gosh, if there aren't a ton of them, but a lot of them are going like 2 hours long, and we know your time is finite, the audience. We don't want to do a 2-hour podcast. We want to stay right within that sweet spot of right about an hour, give or take 5-10 minutes, because we feel like that's time well spent with us.
Yeah, our goal is, we know that everyone has jobs. So the goal here is to give you enough that it's for the ride home, it's on the train into the city for work, it's on that little time that you have where you're just relaxing. A lot of other podcasts go 2 hours, and sure, it'd be great. We could talk for 2 hours, but I don't know that the audience, we respect you, and I don't think you have it. So our goal is to give you right around an hour, something that you can digest. We can get it out on time. It can be quality. And that's why it's a good problem. We didn't expect necessarily to get this much feedback, but we got a lot.
Yeah.
And, we were listeners of other podcasts to start out with. So we know how it feels to get your stuff right on the air, to really be in the conversation. So we don't want to shortchange the audience. So we're going to try it this week. We're going to record Wednesday, release Thursday, where we do just viewer mail. That way, I think we can give everybody the respect and attention they deserve and prolong the conversation.
And Big D, when I tell you that we have some fantastic emails, we have an email from someone who is in charge of, he's like in the creative department of a major theme park. And he wrote in a very detailed analysis of like his job and like what he thinks is going on at Westworld and why they would do that in the story. And so I want to give the time dedicated to that gentleman who wrote in. Tim is his name. So Tim, if you're listening, thank you for your email, and we'll be sure to read that on our listener feedback podcast later this week. But speaking of time, our cowpoke that was supposed to join us, that was he was on the wagon trail from Los Angeles. Gene Lyons is not with us. He thought that he was going to be able to watch the podcast, but his Wi-Fi signal from LA to Phoenix, not that great, so he wasn't able to stream the episode, but he should be able to join us for the viewer feedback. So Gene, we're glad you're back. We're glad you're home safe. We look forward to having you on the next cast. So Big D, it's just going to be you and I today. And again, the format that we did last week, I think was good. I liked that format. It was more conversational, and the feedback we got was pretty positive on it.
Yeah, because we're assuming that everyone has seen the episode. So we don't need to go a blow-by-blow rundown of every scene.
Yeah.
I think it's our goal for the podcast is have it like you're sitting around with your friends who've watched the show and love it as much as you do, and try to pick it apart and say, what really were they telling us besides just what we saw on screen?
Yeah, and there's other podcasts, and I've read the reviews in my spare time, and there's other podcasts that go in a linear format and just tell you what you already know, and that's not fun to the listeners. So we'll kind of give you a brief synopsis, and then kind of what happened, what were the major story arcs in episode 3. So let's dive into it. Episode 3 was entitled The Stray. Why was it entitled The Stray, Big D?
Well, I think it's showing how many of the players are straying from their course, whether it's, Dolores straying from her timeline and what her narrative is and what she should be doing in her daily loop, or if it's Bernard straying from the orders he's getting from his superior about wiping the host or what he should be doing with, instead he's off doing his own experiments on cognitive dissonance and free will, the main one is the stray woodcutter who's out there. But I think across the board, you could pick many, many, many points to say that they're stray.
Yeah. There are two characters. So the main characters that episode 2 focus on, William and Logan, the newcomers to the park. I think they also are about to go stray. And I'll talk a little bit about that, but I just kind of want to review some of the things that happened in their story arc. First, William got into his first gunfight. The fact that he had to hesitate before he took a shot, and we got to see for the first time that simunitions are more than just what we've seen with the Man in Black or an experienced newcomer to Westworld. The fact that simunitions can knock your ass on the ground.
Well, I think this is a tip to one of our, it's a widely held theory that there's multiple timelines. When we saw Teddy light up the Man in Black, he hit him a good 15 times in the chest and back, and he didn't flinch. Granted, maybe the Man in Black's tough, but you're not that tough. Teddy getting shot in the shoulder, that spun him around. That is not the same simunition.
So do you think that you honestly are still sticking to this alternate timeline? You don't think that it's just a situation where, listen, if you get hit with one of those simunitions up close, you were in the military. We talked about this on our first cast on episode 1, talking about simunitions in the Army. If you get shot at close distance, it can cause some damage to you. It won't kill you, but it'll leave a nice welt and bruise on you.
No, it's not as bad as a paintball because it doesn't have the mass. Like a paintball will hurt more than the simunitions. They're tinier. You'll feel them, but it's not going to knock you over. That was like he got hit in the shoulder with a softball.
Yeah.
He got spun around.
That's true.
Also, when we see the Man in Black being hit, it's almost like squibs, like in Hollywood, where you see him getting shot and his jacket, you see the tiny holes appearing. This was something completely different. It didn't pierce his jacket. Instead, it hit him like a paintball. It had mass to it and knocked him on his ass. Did you think he was shot?
For a minute there, I was like, hold on, wait a second. Are they trying to pull a fast one on us? But no, I really like the idea that there has to be, and then when Logan comes up, he's like, well, what did you expect? If you're going to experience an immersive theme park like Westworld, there has to be some element of danger. There has to be some element of pain. Otherwise, none of this you wouldn't find out who you truly are, right? I mean, it's got to hurt somehow.
Exactly. You need consequences. Consequences will dictate what you do. And we see that as the, Rebus and his new version of Walter 2.0, when they have douche, newcomer that we'll talk about, who threatened to rape Dolores. Teddy threatens to duel with him. And the newcomer, granted, he knows he's not going to get killed. He's too much of a pussy. He knows that's going to hurt. There's consequences. So he says to Rebus, I want something easier.
Yeah, well, I like the idea that this episode also continued on with the idea that there are multiple narratives that the guests will either be lured into or can experience, and they get harder. It's just like levels in a video game, right? Or as you progress through the video game, the missions will get more difficult. And you talk about that douchebag. He was like, well, I thought you said this was an easy one. I thought I wasn't going to get hurt. But in the case of William here, the fact that he got the big welt in his heart, I think finally he grew some balls. He was ready to leave Sweetwater and go on an adventure. He pulls down the sign and Logan's like, oh, I told you I didn't want to do any of this white hat shit. And William's like, well, fuck it. I'm here for an adventure. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because as they're on this adventure, we only get to see William and Logan briefly after this scene, but they're out.
But hold on.
Okay.
William, he just elevates the douche level every time we see him. Okay. First of all, he tells him, he says, man, you popped your cherry. Oh,
no, you're talking about Logan. You're talking about Logan.
Oh, yeah. Logan. Sorry about that. Logan tells him, he says, oh, you popped your cherry. Ooh, you feel the tightness in your pants? Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Logan walks up to William, adjusting his penis.
My wife picked that up. Was he getting a blowjob in the alley? What was he doing?
Oh, he just got out of Maeve's saloon. You know that he's been in there doing those bisexual orgies all week.
So now he finally solidifies their relationship.
Yeah.
And he does it in a way that he could also show he's a chauvinist pig and lack of respect for his sister at the same time by saying, oh, yeah, let's go get some spank bank material for you. You're going to need it when you're married to my sister for a year.
Yeah, Jimmy Simpson on Twitter confirmed that William and Logan, and we got a few viewer feedback as well that we'll talk about on our viewer feedback, that Logan essentially is an entitled rich boy. So William is marrying into this very rich family, but will William stray? Because at the end of the episode, Dolores falls into William's arms, and what we know so much about William thus far is even though he's been hanging out with Logan, who's been just banging everyone in Sweetwater, and I mean everyone. He has yet to fall prey to the victim of Clementine's advances or anyone's advances, even after he saves her from this bandit. But will he stray? Will he become someone that he doesn't want to be with Dolores?
I don't think he will. I think it would take something bad happening to drive him to that. He seems to be like a quality guy. Plus, it's like you're going on a bachelor party with your wife's brother or your fiance's brother. You're going to be on your best behavior. As much as Logan's a tool, I could totally picture him going back and at the wedding being like, hey, you remember those hookers? Yeah. Oh, man, that was the best. Totally blowing him up. So he's got to behave himself, probably because he loves his fiance and also he knows that Logan's going to be a tool and tell everybody. But I want to take time here. I told you I was starting to see things. So I've been, as we were watching this, and I'm believing there's multiple timelines. You're not too sold on it. So I'm trying to find some form of a time marker, something that will tell us definitively which timeline we are watching. So my first attempt was when, Peter Abernathy, when they decommission him, he is replaced with the old bartender. So I noticed it in the credits that the bartender / new Peter Abernathy. So I said, okay, maybe if we look in Maeve's and we see who's behind the bar, we can pick whether it was before or after Peter had been decommissioned. That went out the window. It didn't work because there was a point where it was a completely different mustached bartender. Then the next one, I said, okay. I saw that in the credits, there was, in episode 3, was Walter, Revis's the milk. You're going to need your milk, a grown boy. The one who gets decommissioned also. In the credits, they have the title of Walter 1 and Walter 2. So I said, oh my God, we have it now. I know, because obviously there's 2 different Walters in these scenes. We know that there's different timelines that they're showing at the same time. That went out the window when I realized that Walter 1 was only seen in surveillance video that they were reviewing with Ford. And my last attempt was the one that I thought I completely had it, but it turned out only to be a continuity error, is Dolores on her right side hip has a little leather purse. And through the first, 2.5 episodes that I watched, the timeline that we think is 30 years ago, she was not wearing the leather purse. Then in current day, she was. So I said, oh my God, I got it. That's the marker, is her little purse. And then, of course, the final scene where she glitches out, she has it. And another one she doesn't. I was like, damn it, I just wasted an hour trying to find this. Damn you, J.J. Abrams, you're doing this to me. So no, I have not found a time marker other than what I do believe, but I can't verify, is the wanted posters. I think the wanted posters, because they focus on them at certain points where they're in the background or they pause on them for a second. I think the wanted posters give us an idea of which storylines are running, because you can't be running 50 wanted posters.
You have gone full anti-Occam's razor on Westworld. You are in a Reddit rabbit hole. You are tinfoil with your conspiracy theories. I think that, listen, this episode, based on some of the tweets I've seen from people who have seen the first 4 episodes, they deny the Man in Black equals William theory. I don't believe in a multiple timeline. Listen, for the sake of your sanity, I hope you're right. But my money is that this is all existing in the same narrative and the same timeline. This is all happening, together.
I'm going to show you the depth that I went down the rabbit hole. I thought in the first episode, when we see the cold storage, I was convinced that there must be somebody who we see out and about in the park who is in storage in that wide shot. So I went back and froze it and looked through all the people in storage. And God, I can't tell. They're all sweaty, veiny, gross zombie corpses. I couldn't tell shit.
Listen,
and that's when I turned it off.
If a production unit manager went to that level of detail to ensure the continuity areas for people like yourself could pick up on that, like I don't even want to go to a Comic-Con with a panel of Westworld because I fear for you getting on the microphone and asking a detailed level question of this. They're gonna run you out. They're gonna be like, sir, you need to leave.
Oh, I'm becoming that idiot at like Star Trek conventions that ask William Shatner, like, what did you mean by that line in episode 18-4B? God, I'm becoming that person. Please don't make me that person.
Speaking of going down rabbit holes and through the looking glass, Bernard is hanging out with Dolores. In the first scene that we see them, he's handing her an Alice in Wonderland book. He makes her read a passage about change. But we learn that this is not the only book regarding change that Bernard has been giving to her. Apparently, he's been doing this. He's been playing with this idea. Viewers have pointed out that she's also, you talked about the way that she's dressed. They mentioned that she's dressed as Alice. What are Bernard's intentions here with making, with introducing this idea, this inception, Jonathan Nolan copying from his brother, this idea of change within Dolores?
You could obviously believe that it's him trying to spark her inner discovery to kind of find out who she is. And the common theme in all the books he's giving her is change. But I think there's a subtle message that he's actually talking about himself a lot, because he says that people often read about what they want or what they dream for but don't have in their life. So to me, Bernard is saying that these are the books he enjoys reading, and he's sharing them with her. I believe that Bernard feels trapped, almost like he's in a loop. And again, this could go back to the theory that he is a host. And we see throughout the episode, and I feel strongly that he is a host, as we see talk of timelines, anchors, backstories. And as we're believing they're pertaining to the host, I think they're pertaining to Bernard's struggle with which direction he's going to go. Is he going to toe the party line and actually shut down any kind of evolution in the AI, or if he's going to help foster it? But I think the message isn't so much what is Dolores reading, it's what is Bernard reading and choosing to share. And Bernard wants to change.
Well, some of the other things that we see Dolores do, and there was not a lot of Man in Black except for in flashbacks, specifically with Dolores. We see kind of a flashback of her being drugged into the barn by the Man in Black. And we were purposely not shown in episode 1 what was happening in the barn. And I think that was for purpose, because we've seen the Man in Black in subsequent episodes take out a knife and do some sort of damage that messes up and affects those hosts. In the scene that we're able to see into the barn, he does that. He takes out his big Bowie knife and he says, "Why don't we reacquaint ourselves and start from the beginning?" What beginning is he going back to with Dolores?
Well, we've never seen him express any interest in sex. We've never seen him in the brothel. We've never seen him try to rape anyone. I believe he was going to open her up. I don't think he scalped her, but he was either going to do some kind of exploration of her components, or I can't see anything else other than forcing her to remember. Because after that encounter, remember, in the original loop that we saw in the barn, that was what sparked her first divergence from her storyline.
Yeah, and we see the gun. We see her with that gun that she dug up at the end of episode 2. She's looking at it. But as we come to find out, the new narrative as a directive, I assume from corporate, it doesn't seem like it came from Dr. Ford. It seems like it came from Teresa. They now mandate which hosts can pull trigger and which cannot.
No, they said that when Tubbs is out in the field, when he's with Elsie, and they're talking about the woodcutter, and the woodcutter only had privileges for the axe, and the others couldn't even touch it. He said to Elsie, you can thank your boss for that. And her boss is Dr. Ford. Dr. Ford has implemented the weapons provision. It's not Teresa. So that is something new that has not been in the park. So there's obviously a reason why they feel now all of a sudden that this is required. I just want to go back a little bit to Bernard. I think Bernard is struggling throughout the entire episode with who he is. We hear a lot of talk about storyline, and Dr. Ford says, backstory is the anchor of what keeps a narrative in place, what keeps the hosts grounded. Bernard seems to be fighting with his narrative. He doesn't know which way to go. And there's times that when he is wavering, he's been told not to deal with Dolores, not to have his private conversations, not to have his off-record book reading sessions, but yet he continues to do it. He meets with Dr. Ford, and Dr. Ford's not dumb. He knows what he's doing. Dr. Ford says to him, and they're talking about their old boss. They're talking about Arnold. And he says that Arnold made the mistake of believing that they were real. Don't make that same mistake. So Bernard says, why would you think I'd make that? Dr. Ford then uses the exact trick that he did with Teddy to pull him back online by giving Teddy the narrative of Wyatt and giving him a purpose. What does he do? He immediately says, it's because of your son. I know how that still bothers you. It's a trigger for him. What keeps him anchored working at Westworld and working diligently is the loss that he feels. He said it's the pain is the only memory he has of his son, and it keeps him working. So right away, he gets on the conference line because we're told that there's limited contact with the outside. So immediately, red flags go up for me. We then see him in front of the video monitor talking to who we assume is his wife. But I had mentioned in the Instacast that it reminded me of The Moon, where they're using this limited access video communication with the outside to keep their employees, who possibly are hosts, grounded and working without any problems. Did you feel that this was a normal thing, that Ford would bring up his son when they were talking about nothing of the sort?
Well, there's a couple things here, and I want to make absolutely clear for the audience. So what you're referring to in terms of The Moon, there's a movie that came out in 2009 starring Sam Rockwell called The Moon. And I actually had to watch the movie today to get that reference. So, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched The Moon, Sam Rockwell's character is made up of clones of the original astronaut that was out on a drilling mission. And it would be just cheap for the corporation to continually have clones do the same 3-year cycle that the original astronaut was supposed to do. Just keep them up there, and then they're implanted with memories of the original character, so that it keeps them doing their daily basis. Almost like the idea of almost like that Lost, right? I mean, again, there were so many similarities to the show Lost. So, I mean, when you think of who was in the hatch, the Australian guy that was in the hatch, had to keep doing his repetition, his daily thing. That's almost like the same kind of concept where we're going to implant memories, and those memories are going to keep you on your path, keep you doing your specific task every day.
Yeah, and they tell us that the other hosts are supposed to course correct.
Right.
When they see one of the other hosts going off, they course correct and pull them back on. I listened the second time through to what the wife is saying, and it's almost word for word the conversation that later on Bernard has with Dolores. She asks him, she says, do you ever wish that you could forget? That's the exact same question that he asked Dolores at the end.
So are you making the case that Bernard is a host and Dr. Ford has just course corrected him?
Correct. By bringing up his son, it's a trigger to course correct him. So he gets him into this, limited access communication with the outside. He thinks he's talking to his wife, and his wife triggers those memories within his backstory. She says, "Oh, don't you remember him? Do you remember sleeping with him? Do you remember what it was like?" And he then has flashbacks, and you see him visualizing it. And he tells us that many times in the morning, he wakes up for a split second. He can't remember where or when he is.
So do you I liken that now just to add fuel to this and give you some points on why I think Bernard might be a host. Although at the end of the day, I still don't think he's a host. But there's elements of that, and I'll agree with you that when he talked about waking up in the morning and he doesn't know where he is or when he is or who's in the bed with him, did that remind you of scenes that we've seen of Maeve and Dolores waking up in bed? And again, it's so brilliantly acted by Thandie Newton and Evan Rachel Wood, where they're giving the illusion, like in their eyes, they're telling the audience without saying it. They're taking a moment to just pause and reflect and figure out where they are.
Yeah, they're rebooting.
Right.
It's like you restart your computer. That's the start screen. Yes.
Okay.
When you wake up, you have that split second where you have to get adjusted to your surroundings. His wife then says to him, she says, "Do you ever wish you could forget the pain?" And he says, "It's the only thing that keeps me going, the memory of him." So then the wife now reinforces that again by saying, "Oh, you're lucky, your work, it keeps you busy, keep it doing." She's pushing him back into line to funnel the pain of his supposed son's death into being a good worker at the park, not questioning things, and towing the party line. After this phone call, he goes to Dolores, and he's back online. He says, "I've made a mistake. I need to talk to you." He is almost ready to reboot Dolores.
After this conversation that he has with Dr. Ford, he goes back and he admits to Dolores that he's made a mistake of incepting her with the idea of change. But he doesn't change Dolores back. Dolores asks him, "Do you want to correct what you've done?" Bernard makes a very human decision and starts talking about evolution and says to her, "I want to see where this goes." But he makes Dolores promise him that she'll stay on his loop. Dolores says she will, but is Dolores becoming more sentient? Does she lie to Bernard?
Yeah, I think he has to know she lies. He is telling her to deny the conversations they're having. So that would tell you that if Dolores is questioned by another technician and they say, "Have you had a conversation with Bernard?" she's going to say no. So he knows she's capable of lying. I really enjoyed this interaction with Dolores and Bernard. They're doing verbal commands. She says something that Bernard immediately sees, that there's something going on. There's something evolving within Dolores when she says, and she's in improvisation mode, "When I discover who I am, I'll be free." And in the previews for episode 4, I think we're going to see that mission. And I think Dolores is going to search out that same maze that Man in Black is doing. So, gosh. He's not waiting for evolution. For all the talk of evolution being a mistake and he is pedal to the metal. He is balls to the wall. He's going to make this change happen. He's not waiting for Dolores to come up with these changes on her own. He's just shoving her out the door and saying, "Go find it."
So after the conversation that Dolores has with Bernard, she's sent back out into the park, and she goes on her regular loop, right? Which is she's supposed to meet Teddy, go back up to the ranch house to meet up and encounter Rebus and his gang with Walter and get shot and all that stuff. But she does this on her own. We see now her doing this on her own because Teddy is out trying to find Wyatt and the Wyatt gang. Something has unlocked in her. Not only can she see memories, she sees old Abernathy in her father, but she seems to now have the power of deja vu on steroids. She can see what's about to happen and take action on this.
I felt like it was Neo, the first time that he sees the code in the Matrix. She looks down, glitches out, sees the bartender replacement of her dad and her original dad, looks up, and she immediately recognizes what's going on. She's a bit confused, but she decodes it real quick. After she's shot and she realizes she can tell what's coming, she can avoid almost any danger. She has seen, Dr. Ford told Teddy, you've died 1,000 times. So we can assume that Dolores has been raped 1,000 times. She has seen almost every possible variable that could happen in her storyline. She should be able to navigate every danger the rest of this way.
Which will be interesting because she, again, when Rebus takes her back into the hay, she's smart enough to pull the gun out of his holster, which when we did the Instacast, I didn't pick up on this, but the second time I watched it, she does not pull the gun out of the hay. She pulls it out of his holster, and a voice, which we come to find is the voice of Arnold, says, kill him. And now it's unlocked her ability to pull the trigger, and she shoots him in the neck after kind of glitching out and seeing him as the Man in Black.
Yeah, but she seemed surprised that she was able to do it. Earlier, when we saw her trying to test fire, try to learn how to shoot, go target shooting with Teddy, she realizes she can't do it. When she's in the hay and she finally does shoot him, she is as surprised as we are that she can actually do it.
Yeah,
it's I think, again, reinforcing to her that she's capable of doing much more than she believes or that she has been allowed to do.
Are they going to allow her with this newfound power to navigate the park secret with William and Logan? Like, is she about to take William and Logan on this maze, this adventure?
God, we've already seen that the security force has a difficult time tracking one bald guy in overalls walking alone in the brush. So I don't think and they even make a comment. Elsie jokes with him, is your security force really that bad that you can't keep track of them? They haven't put money into fixing cold storage or fixing the surveillance. So all bets are off. I could picture Dolores walking around with the Lamat, pistol, the revolver, and just doing whatever the hell she wants.
Yeah, and again, I want to address the William is Man in Black multiple timelines theory. Here's why I don't think it's multiple timelines. Why would she be glitching out seeing the Man in Black that just drug her into the barn? Why would she see that and then run into William's arms?
Well, I don't think we have a reliable narrator. We don't know. Sometimes we're seeing scenes through host's eyes. We saw it with Dolores. She looks down at the father. I don't think we have a reliable idea of whose storyline we're seeing. So it's very possible that it's not timeline variations, but we're seeing the eyes through hosts.
Well, speaking of seeing the eyes through hosts, one of the more interesting scenes that we saw last episode, in episode 2, with Maeve as she was down in with the, what do we call it? Is that body cleanup? Is that body sanitation when they're just hosing down the hosts from the night that have been killed? What's going on down there?
It's some kind of maintenance, but when Bernard is talking to Dolores, not to go back to her, and he says, have you had diagnostics? And she said, no, I haven't diagnostics. I've been cleaned twice. That just sounds filthy.
Well, Teddy was down there, and there was a big shot of his eyes. And we were kind of seeing, what is Teddy seeing when he's down there down in the hose? And I think we're about to figure that out because his story arc this episode, we got to see some more. And like Teddy kind of grew some balls this episode, and a real interesting backstory. We also got to see a little bit more of the Teddy timeline, like what Teddy is used for when a guest is on a mission with Teddy. Teddy's kind of a bounty hunter with an ambiguous past. Like that was his original programming. He was kind of nothing. He was kind of a side character, kind of a shitty side character that you would go and catch some desperados with. And you see this. There's almost like the woman noob in the park. I tweeted this during the live tweet. She's doing the total Teddy experience.
Hell no, she is not a noob.
Are you kidding me?
She is badass.
She might be badass, but
Hold on, listen. I watched this tonight with my wife and her sister. And I said, as much as we have rape and violence against women in this show, there is a fair share of badass women. We have, Hector's sidekick with the tattoo on her face. She mowed down a good 20 people. I don't think she missed a shot. And now we have this newcomer, who's badass and is lighting up people. So do not call her a noob.
No, it's her first time. It's definitely her first time to the park because she's hanging out with Teddy. And
if she was a noob, she'd be camping.
No, she gets lured upstairs by Clementine. When's the last time you saw anyone who wasn't a noob get lured upstairs? You know, with the whole line, "Not much of a rind on you, is there?"
Did you play Call of Duty?
Of course. I played a couple versions.
You were 100% a camper. That's what a noob would do.
Of course, I don't want to get killed.
You would hide in the second floor and you would just snipe people. That's exactly what you would do.
I would.
And
I'd get my ghillie suit on, and I'd go hide in the woods and hope no one killed me.
And that's why this woman has more balls than you.
She was
not a noob. She was badass.
Well, speaking of cowards, we actually see Dr. Ford use a Shakespeare quote on Teddy, and the full quote goes, "A coward dies 1,000 times before his death, but the valiant tastes of death but once. It seems to me most strange that men should fear, seeing that death, a necessary end, will come when it will come." And again, Anthony Hopkins delivers that a lot more. You
read that very eloquently. That was beautiful.
The interpretation of that is Dr. Ford is saying that a person who is not afraid to face the challenges of life doesn't actually die like the coward does. So in my case, the person who decides to go out in a blaze of glory instead of hanging out in their ghillie suit in a game of, in a game of Call of Duty, they can't be called a coward. The person who can hold their head up high and be proud that he or she faced that difficult situation or fought for what he or she believed in, that's the valiant, right? So when this brave and valiant person physically dies, this is the only time he or she will truly know death because he or she has never been afraid to face the challenges of death. He's talking to Teddy about this, and Teddy is the interpretation that I got within the storyline is that Teddy feels like he has something to go after, but Dr. Ford says no because he has no backstory. There's nothing giving him the reason to die day after day. Was that your interpretation?
See, I think you're reading it completely the opposite that I did. I felt that throughout the entire episode, we had polar opposites. We had Bernard, who was showing compassion and true, feeling. Bernard talks about the time when his son was swimming with him. He was afraid to let go, and that as a father, as a parent, you're afraid to let go as well, but sometimes you have to let them go because it's your job as a parent. He was a loving parent. I felt that Dr. Ford was being a dick on multiple occasions. I felt to Teddy, he wasn't being compassionate, telling him that he was valiant. He says, do you want anything? And he said, yeah, I'd like to go away with Dolores. He's like, nah, not going to happen. Well, I would like to do this. Nope, not going to happen. And he says, you know why you're not going to? Because we didn't give you a backstory. He's essentially telling him, we didn't even care enough about you to give you a complete backstory. He's condescending. He doesn't like when one of the technicians covers a host that he's working on, and he comes over, scolds him, and damages the merchandise and cuts his face. He makes a point throughout the entire episode to show no compassion. So I do not buy the fact that he cared about Teddy.
No, I think listen, Dr. Ford is a genius, and he's taking a character, a side character like Teddy, and he's really making him a powerful, integral individual into his new narrative. He injects, and I didn't catch this on the first watch, but on the second watch I did. He injects a backstory that essentially will infuse Teddy with the ability to go after a character that has a sordid past with Dr. Ford. So Dr. Ford has made Teddy his hero in this narrative. And here's what I mean by that. As we talked about, Teddy had no narrative before. So the backstory that Dr. Ford gives him, he says, is a fiction which, like all good stories, is rooted in truth. Now, did you pick up that line, and did you pick up what Dr. Ford is saying here?
I did. Now, you've made me think of something. We're assuming that we know that Dr. Ford is now in charge of the narrative, and we believe that the Wyatt storyline is his. What if Wyatt and his entire band of bone-wearing, skin-wearing, hillsmen are actually under the control of someone else? Ford has now created in Teddy a champion for him. He believes that he's the only one can go after him, that it's not part of the story, but it's actually a mission that Dr. Ford wants him to either go get these rogue, hosts that are under the control of someone else or themselves. I think that's a possibility.
And again, you're not going to pick up on it if you've only seen it once. The second time, I'm like, fuck, Dr. Ford is telling, just substitute Wyatt for Arnold. That's the villain. Because it's the same thing, right? Again, a good fiction is rooted in truth. So he's using the story of his old partner, Arnold, who went off, just like Wyatt went off, came back a couple days later with some strange ideas about hearing voices in his head, right? And Arnold, it's giving sentience to the host. He was a loner. He was kind of crazy. He would only talk to hosts. I think that these what we see at the end with the hills with those scarecrow looking guys, that's the Arnold bots. Teddy, he goes down in a blaze of glory and shoots all of them in a fucking sweet ass 360, shoots them all right in the chest. They don't go down. It's because Arnold he's modified them. So yeah, he's modified them in some strange way.
Them. And we noticed that other than when Teddy and the sheriff and the few newcomers actually, when they're on the hunt and they come across the bodies tied to the tree, at that point they come under direct fire where they're getting people shooting at them. But when they actually finally encounter Wyatt's band of marauders or whatever they are, none of them fire a single shot. All of them have blunt force instruments. There's a bunch with knives, large machetes, axes. I'm wondering if that whoever is controlling this batch has modified them so that they don't react the same way to the simunition.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. I picked up on that as well. My fear with this storyline and where they're going to take this Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy are going to take this story. Is it going to be too J.J. Abrams? Is it going to be too much of a lost situation where we're going to play, God? We talked about the idea of infusing religion into this on the Instacast. They talk a lot about it. And again, I picked it up on the second watch. The fact that the sheriff is calling him a pestilence. Wyatt is a pestilence. The fact that Arnold, if there's a connection there with Arnold is like the devil character. They keep calling him the devil. But does that make Dr. Ford God, right? God, before the Garden of Eden, did not want his creation, man, to cover themselves up. This was the Garden of Eden. He wanted full control over them. The devil wanted them to eat from the fruit of knowledge and be able to make their own decisions and have free will. That storyline, are we starting to see that infuse into Westworld?
Yeah, I think without a doubt you're seeing that, one camp, Dr. Ford is trying to not question and to be obedient. And then the other side, whether it's Bernard or Arnold, is trying to promote free will. But we're definitely seeing the use of God multiple times throughout it. And whether, Ford, like you said in the Instacast, is trying to infuse religion back in, I'm not quite sure. I just think also they could be using the term religion as the voice in their head that's controlling them. So God could be nothing more than the method and the means in which someone is controlling the hosts.
What was that weird sound? Was it was it a velociraptor? Like, was that supposed to remind us of Michael Crichton in Jurassic Park, or the polar bear from Lost?
It was Piggy calling the other children with the conch down to the beach. Like in Lord of the Flies, or right. I think it's some kind of like a large horn. They're simulating an animal noise.
Yeah,
they use it to try to instill fear in whoever that they're hunting.
Yeah, the others definitely laid a trap for Teddy and his guests. One thing that I wasn't.
What's another thing that does?
Yeah,
if Wyatt's group in the hills wants to be left alone,
the hills have eyes.
That large horn, growl, whatever it is, would be a good defense to keep people away from that area.
It would.
Without having to engage, without having to cause a problem, to bring attention to yourself, just doing that large, scary animal noise would keep all newcomers and most hosts away from you.
Well, Teddy, before he goes down in his blaze of glory, he hands his noob, the badass woman with the shotgun, something. What do you think he handed her and told her to like get back to base? Like what was that?
I don't know. I don't know that's necessarily important as to what he sent her back into town. I think that's part of their defense mechanism, the program we've been told. But we're led to believe that Teddy is killed. After watching it a second time, I don't think he is. They beat him about the head and they're whacking him good, but I would not be surprised if we next episode see Teddy a hostage of that group.
Yeah.
No one shot him. We didn't see any stabbing, any death blows. It was like a big scrum, and they just piled on him. I think it was left intentionally, unclear what happened, and next week we're going to see him as a hostage.
So it's not So what you're saying is we just saw a Glenn death scene in The Walking Dead in the dumpster.
Why do you have to ruin my day? Don't talk about that show. Terrible.
I know we talked about Teddy, and I know we talked about Dr. Ford. I do want to talk a little bit about Arnold. So we see that there's some backstory, and there was a partner in the first 3 years, right? But there were no guests in Westworld, and I really like this flashback, and it's heavily talked about on social media. The fact that there was a really good special effect done with Anthony Hopkins showing a younger version of him. Hanging out. But I want to talk about how awesome it was that they showed earlier version of robots and the exoskeleton. And that's what we would assume is underneath in Disney, in the theme parks. And there was even like the robot hand that reminded me of the 1973 movie. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I liked watching the technicians try to teach them to square dance.
Yeah.
And it was comical, but it was also the background story that we need. We need to understand what the park started out with so that we can truly be impressed with the stage that their AI hosts are right now. Because in the beginning, Ford says that Arnold wasn't just content with having them look or act real. He wanted much more. And we can tell that, Dr. Ford's on the other side. He realizes what the park is. The park is a place for people outside who want to indulge in power will come there when they don't have power in their own lives. And he does show a bit of compassion here. He says the least we can do is have the hosts not remember.
Right. Which is why I like Dr. Ford. I think Dr. Ford is on the side of good. I know he comes across as kind of this creepy old man that's power hungry. But I think that he understands that in a place like this, and he talks about this, you don't want hosts to be conscious. Right? If you're delivering the delights of sin, the last thing you want to do is an army of lunatic sentient robots, right?
Yeah, I agree.
As he's explaining the idea of giving hosts the ability to listen to their inner monologue as they're programming, when they're talking about the first time they did it, did you see who the character was? It's Peter Abernathy. And we know from episode 1, Peter Abernathy's original narrative was the preacher that's on the cannibal the Cannibal Canyon, right? Narrative.
Yeah, it was the dinner party.
The dinner party, right? With the preacher
they were using the inner monologue to bootstrap consciousness, and it didn't work.
So Peter Abernathy, the host that's now in cold storage, was one of the hosts that was programmed by Arnold. So what do you think happened to Arnold? Ford said he died in the park. We talked about how maybe he's hiding up in the hills somewhere, but do you think he's dead, or do you think he's like infused his consciousness into someone else? What do you think his connection is with the Man in Black? That's like 5 questions.
Okay, well, it's obvious that Ford leaves it so ambiguous that we don't know. He says, they think it was an accident, but I know he was a careful, precise man. Tells us absolutely nothing. Then he says that the partners in the park were way too happy to scrub his existence from the history books. How the hell can that happen if that's a real person? You can't just have, let's just say it's an obviously intelligent man who's come in the equal of Ford. Something happens in the park and they just wipe him off the record books.
When legends become facts, you write down the legend. That's what Dr. Ford said.
Arnold is obviously still around, whether he has downloaded or put his consciousness into one of the hosts, whether he is still running around in the park somewhere living in the cave, building an army. He's obviously still out there because he's communicating.
I do want to talk about the stray host here because there's some interesting things and some interesting concepts that was introduced. So Elsie is exploring the Walter incident. She seems, you talked about this on the Instacast, and I agreed. She is the only one that is doing her job. Shannon Woodward, the actress that plays Elsie, is very active on Twitter. She's very active in politics, and she's as sassy in person as her character is. And there were people that were giving her grief because they were like, oh, this is so unreal. I'm done with you, Westworld, because no real person would curse that much. And she's like, I assure you, all those cursing are scripted, and it's a fake show about a theme park. Like, deal with it. This is a character. But she is, again, seems to be the only reasonable one. And she says that, listen, the Walter host seemed to be the first one that was talking about this Arnold. What did that mean? And we find out the 6 hosts that he killed, that the Walter, now it's down in cold storage, killed, were part originally of storylines where they had killed Walter. So she thinks that this might be a situation where hosts have now gained the ability to go back out for revenge, that they're going to be killing other hosts that were part of their prior narrative. So she goes on a mission with Stubbs to track down this stray host that, that's kind of gone awry.
Yeah. So first off, I want to give a shout out to Shannon Woodward. She's actually interacted with us on Twitter, which is very nice. And so was it Thandy Newton?
Yeah, Thandy Newton. And guys, listen, Shannon and Thandy, anytime you guys want to come them on the podcast, open invitation.
So on the Instant Cast, we talked about the carvings, and I think I got it wrong then. Then I made a comment that I believe that the hobbies were kind of an aberration, that they weren't there. Second watch, I picked up that Elsie says that the hobbies help with their backstory. It helps keep them grounded. So the carving of the bear and the turtle were standard, but was not standard was Orion.
That's right.
So now Orion, looking at it, kind of raised a red flag to me. Did it raise anything to you?
Absolutely. 100%. So we talked about in the Enscast, the fact that, when we're talking about primitive man always looked at the stars and tried to interpret the stars and interpreted them as gods and created mythology around them. When you think about Greek mythology, Orion is the hunter. Why specifically would they pick out the hunter and it not be alluded to something else that's happening in the park, right? Whether the Man in Black is the hunter or Arnold is the hunter, I don't know, but there's got to be something with that concept of Orion, Greek mythology, hunter, gods, Arnold. I'm going back in the rabbit hole. Pull me back up.
Well, I picked up something different. Granted, it is Orion, but it is not Orion from the view from Earth. It is an inverse copy of it. So you'll see Orion's shield.
You can't see Orion from other planets.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying from the ground. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, of course you're going to see Orion from the ground.
Okay, great. So then you see it to where his shield is aiming to the right. His right arm is raised. On the turtle shell, if you look at it, it is inverse. Now, granted, the version of Orion that's carved is missing the bottom half. It's missing the Orion sword, and it's missing the one star. So it's not a complete, depiction. But somebody, and I don't remember where it was, we'll get to it in feedback, whether it was, on Twitter, or it was on Instagram, had mentioned that possibly, much like in Hunger Games with the dome, that this could be some large dome that is having this projected on top, much like what was the Jim Carrey movie?
Are you talking about the Ed Harris movie as well? You're talking about the Truman Show?
Yes, we're back to the Truman Show. Because I'm swearing, look at it. It is not the correct. It is an inverse copy of Orion.
What are you, fucking Gala fucking Leo?
Yes, maybe it's my backstory. So if there's any astrologers out there, please tell me I'm wrong. I'm looking at the picture side by side, and it is reverse.
Good God. So Stubbs climbs down into the crevasse, says he only needs the head so they can examine it. The stray host comes alive and then climbs up the rope and he picks up the boulder, and Elsie falls, down on her back, and you think that he's just going to bash her head in, but instead he self-destructs. You pointed this out to me, like that was his whole method. Why would he self-destruct in this moment? What is spurring him on? Why didn't he just kill himself when he was down in the crevasse?
Well, he didn't have the means to do it. And on second watch, I picked up on it. I wanted to see how he reacted. When he comes to, he could seriously pull that saw out of his neck and really hurt Tubbs. He makes a point of, disarming Tubbs in a humane way. He hits him and throws him to the ground. He doesn't really injure him. So it shows me that even though this host is a stray, he is still adhering to that base core, which says you don't hurt people. He climbs out, beats the absolute hell out of his head, destroying whatever diagnostics they could run to see what were the cause of him to go astray. It's his self-destruct. I said in the instant cast, it was his cyanide capsule. There's no other answer for it.
So you think that was the programming put in there by Arnold? Is that if you're found out your consciousness, you immediately have to self-destruct?
Yeah, because he was screwed. He was stuck in the crevasse.
Do you think he was trying to find his brethren up in the hills?
I don't even want to get there. It could be absolutely anything. He could have just been lost. We don't know. Okay, all I will say is that when he was stuck, he couldn't self-destruct. He can't pick himself apart. Maybe he could have bashed his head against the wall, but he was still hoping he would get out. In the end, whether he was controlled by a third party or he did it himself, he wanted the actual park technicians to not be able to tell what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he was destroying the evidence.
And I think we're going to see more. We're going to see why that is in some upcoming episodes. But that's all the story arcs that I had that I wanted to talk about on today's cast. Is there anything that we've missed, Big D?
Well, we talk a lot about who is a host, who is not a host. On our website, shatontv.com, right on the right-hand side, you will see a listener poll where we want everybody to come in and tell us what you think. So we've made it easy. If you go there now, we will have 4 likely candidates for possibly being a host. We have the Man in Black, we have Teresa Cullen, we have Dr. Ford, and we have Bernard Lowe. We've already accumulated 50 votes and hasn't been up there that long, so it's good. Right now, it's clearly Dr. Ford. Nobody really thinks Teresa's a host. Bernard and the Man in Black are fairly equal, so let your voice be heard. Shatontv.com, vote.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about before we tell our people where to find us?
No. I think I've talked quite a bit, and I've gone a lot of crazy places.
Yes.
This damn show does it to you.
It does. It does. Listen, I'm wearing a tinfoil right now. Listen, as we talked about, we're going to read our viewer feedback on, we're going to record that on Wednesday, release it Thursday. So you still have time to send in your theories, your analysis of anything within the show, anything within any of the episodes, episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. If you've got a crazy crackpot theory, send it to us. We want to hear it. Our email is hosts@shatontv.com. Again, that email is hosts@shatontv.com. You can find all of our links, all of our podcast information, our blog that Gene wrote on our website, shatontv.com. And follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We're both at @ShatOnTV. And Big D, you did an amazing job with our new logo. I really love it. So you may see that on SoundCloud and iTunes and wherever we are. I like it because it's something different. Not a lot of, it seems like for as many podcasts covering Westworld as there are, they seem to all be using the same GD logo.
Yeah, and that's why we are trying this out. Just because someone else has done it and it has worked doesn't mean it's the best option. So we think that, maybe doing the quick cast, doing an hour show here and then the feedback, if you don't feel that way as our listeners, tell us. We're flexible. We want to make this the best show possible. And I think in the logo, we're saying that as well. If you go look on iTunes, there's about 50 Westworld podcasts, all with the exact black background, the W, their cookie cutter. We don't want to be that. We want to try to be something different.
We're the
anti-cookie
cutter. We're the Arnolds of Westworld.
God, I'm just so thankful that the show is good because we've gotten on our other podcasts where we do movies. We often do bad movies from the 80s and we tear them apart And people have said listening to us is like listening to their wives argue and bicker with them. So with this show being good, it's so nice. I'll actually have something positive to say.
I'll defend that review because that review was of Westworld, the 1973 movie. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Gene, we're glad that you're back. We hope to hear you on the feedback podcast. Again, get your emails in before Wednesday at midnight. On behalf of my partner, Big D, I am the Raj, saying we will see you next time here at Westworld.